Hi, I'm Melissa George with The Mindful Heart, and today I'm going to tell you a story called The Fir Tree. This one is written by Hans Christian Andersen. There was once a pretty little fir tree that lived in the woods. It did not pay attention to the bright sun or the fresh air or the pleasant children who played nearby. He could only think about growing taller and getting older. Year after year, he grew little by little. Oh, it sighed. If only I were a great big tree like the others, and I could stretch out my branches far and wide and look out into the great world. And the birds would build nests in my branches, and when the wind blew, I would bow politely. The tree took no pleasure in the sunshine, nor in the birds, nor in the rose-colored clouds that sailed over. And when winter came and snow laid all around, a little bunny would hop around, and it annoyed the tree very much. "Ah, I will grow and grow and grow and become old. That is the only pleasure in life," said the tree. In the fall, some woodcutters came, and they chopped down some of the tallest trees. The fir tree shivered when he saw those tall trees crash down, and then their branches were sawn off, and their great trunks were left bare so that they were almost unrecognizable. And then they were hauled away on wagons and dragged out of the woods. Where are they going? What will happen to them? He wondered. In the spring, when the birds came back from their winter homes, the fir tree asked them, "Where have all those tall trees been taken? Did you see them?" The stork nodded and told that as he flew over the ocean, he saw splendid masts on tall ships of the sea. They had the scent of fir trees, and they were very tall and very grand. "Oh," said the fir tree, "if only I were big enough to sail over the sea too." Wait, what is the sea? What does it look like? That's too hard to explain right now. "Goodbye," said the stork. The little sunbeams up above said, "Rejoice in your youth and be happy in the sweet growing time and in your young life." And the wind kissed the tree, and the dew wept tears over it, but the fir tree did not pay attention and did not understand. Toward Christmas time, many trees were cut down. Some were the same size as the fir tree and the same age, and the little tree had no peace and could not help but wish that he would be taken away on an adventure. These little trees kept all their branches, and they were placed carefully in carts and taken out of the woods. "Where are they going?" asked the fir tree. "They're my size, and I even saw one that was smaller. But where are they going?" "We know," twittered the sparrows. "In the city, we've seen the greatest splendor and magnificence that you can imagine. They are planted in the middle of a very large room and decorated with the most beautiful things. Golden apples and sweetmeats and toys and hundreds of candles." "What? Tell me more," said the fir tree as it trembled. "Well, we haven't seen any more than that, but it sure was beautiful," the sparrows twittered. "Am I destined for the same brilliant career? That would be even better than sailing over the sea. Oh, I am sick with longing. If only it was Christmas. Now that I am tall and grown up like those taken away last year. If only I were in the cart, and if only I were on my way to see the warm room and the splendor and the magnificence. There must be something even grander to come after that. Or else why would they be so dressed up? Oh, I am pining away. I can hardly stand it." "But rejoice in us," said the fresh air and sunshine. "Be happy with your youth and the free air." But the tree took no notice. It just grew and grew and stood there, beautiful and green throughout the rest of the summer and into the next winter. That Christmas, it was the first tree to be hewn down. It hit the ground with a groan, and it felt weak and faint. It could not be happy, only sad because it knew it was leaving its home. It was hauled out of the forest and into a large and beautiful living room. There were pictures on the walls and silk sofas and armchairs and tables stacked high with picture books and toys. The tree was placed in a tub of sand, and that was covered with greenery. And the tree trembled with excitement. What was coming next? On its branches, they hung bits of colored paper and sugar plums and apples and nuts. And then over 100 red and blue and white candles were fastened to the branches. And then lifelike dolls were placed all over the tree. At the very top, there was placed a gold tinsel star. It was a gorgeous tree, quite unusually gorgeous. Tonight, they all said, tonight it will be lighted. And the tree could hardly wait. If only it were evening, and then the candles would be lighted, and then will my friends from the woods be able to see me? Will I stand here all decked out throughout winter and then into summer? Now the candles were lighted. What glitter and what splendor! The tree shivered with excitement and accidentally singed one branch with a candle. After that, it did not even quiver so as to not lose any more ornaments. And how terrible it was that he had to hold quite still, and he was bewildered by all the radiance. And then the folding doors opened, and in rushed a crowd of children, who stood quietly for 1 second before they shouted and danced around the tree and grabbed off one present after another. What are they doing? Thought the tree. What's happening now? As the candles burned lower and lower and were put out one by one, the children were given permission to plunder the tree. They rushed at it and raced around with their toys and treats. The tree was very afraid that it would be toppled over and all of its good things were gone. A story, the children shouted as they dragged a little old man over to sit by the tree. He sat down beneath the tree and said, "Let us pretend we are in the greenwood, and I shall tell you one story. Would you like to hear Henny Penny or Humpty Dumpty?" Some cried Henny Penny and others shouted Humpty Dumpty until the old man settled on telling the story of Humpty Dumpty. And the tree thought, am I not to be in it? Am I to have anything to do with it? But the tree had already played his part. And the man told the children about Humpty Dumpty, who fell down the stairs and married a princess. And the children clapped their hands and cried, "Another! Another!" They wanted the story of Henny Penny also, but they only got Humpty Dumpty. The fir tree stood quite astonished and thoughtful. The birds in the wood had never told him anything like that. Humpty Dumpty fell downstairs and yet married a princess? Yes, that is the way of the world, thought the tree, and it was sure it must be true because such a nice man had told the story. Well, who knows, maybe I shall fall downstairs and then marry a princess. And it was so happy to think that the next day it would be decked out again with candles and toys and glittering ornaments and fruit. Tomorrow I shall quiver again with excitement, and I shall enjoy to the full all my splendor. Tomorrow I shall hear Humpty Dumpty again, and perhaps Henny Penny too. And the tree stood silent and lost in thought through the whole party that night. The next morning the servants came in. Now the dressing up will begin again, thought the tree. But instead, they dragged it out of the room and up the stairs to the lumber room, and they put it in a dark corner where no sunshine could be found. What does this mean? Thought the tree. What am I supposed to do here? What is there for me to hear? As it leant against the wall and thought, and there was plenty of time for thinking. For days and nights went by, and no one came. And at last, when someone did come, it was only to put some more boxes in the corner. Now the tree was quite covered with them. It seemed as if it had been forgotten. Now it is winter outdoors, thought the fir tree. The ground is hard and covered with snow. They can't plant me yet, and that is why I am staying up here under cover until spring comes. How thoughtful they are. Only I wish it was not so terribly dark and lonely here. Not even a little bunny. It was so nice out in the wood when all the snow laid around and the hare leapt past me. Yes, even when he leapt over me. But I didn't like it then. But it's so dreadfully lonely up here. Squeak, squeak, said a little mouse, stealing out, followed by another. They sniffed at the fir tree and they hid between its branches. "It's frightfully cold," said the little mice. "How nice it is to be here. Don't you think so too, you old fir tree?" "I'm not old at all," said the fir tree. "There are many much older than I am." "Well, where do you come from?" asked the mice, "and what do you know?" They were extremely inquisitive. "Do tell us about the most beautiful place in the world. Is that where you come from? Have you been in the storeroom where the cheeses lie on the shelves and the hams hang from the ceiling and where one goes in thin and comes out fat?" "I don't know anything about that," said the tree, "but I know the wood, where the sun shines and the birds sing." And then it told them all about its young days. And the little mice, they had never heard anything like that before. And they listened with all their ears, and they said, "Oh, how much you have seen! How lucky you have been!" "I?" said the fir tree. And then it thought it over, what it had told them. Yes, on the whole, those were very happy times. But then it went on to tell them about Christmas Eve, and when it had been decorated with candles and toys and fruits. "Oh," said the little mice, "how lucky you have been, you old fir tree." "I am not at all old," said the tree. "I only came from the wood this winter." "Well, how beautifully you tell stories," said the little mice. And the next evening they came with 4 others who wanted to hear the tree's story. And it told still more stories, for it remembered everything so clearly. And it thought, "Those were happy times, but they may come again. Humpty Dumpty fell downstairs, and yet he married a princess. Perhaps I shall also marry a princess." And then it thought of a pretty little birch tree that grew out in the wood. And it seemed to the fir tree a real princess, and a very beautiful one too. And then the tree told the whole story that it could remember, every single word. And the little mice were ready to leap out onto the topmost branch out of sheer joy. The next night, many more mice came, and on Sunday, even 2 rats. But they did not care for the story. And that troubled the little mice, for now they thought less of it too. "Is that the only story you know?" asked the rats. "The only one," answered the tree, "that I heard on my happiest evening. But I did not realize how happy I was." "That's a very poor story. Don't you know one about bacon or cheese or a storeroom story?" "No," said the tree. "Then thank you, but we must go," said the rats. And they went back to their friends. And at last the little mice went off also, and the tree said, sighing, "Really, it was very pleasant when the lively little mice sat around and listened while I told them stories. But now that's over too. So I will think of the time when I shall be brought out again to keep up my spirits." But when did that happen? Well, it was one morning when someone came to tidy up the lumber room, and they threw the little tree roughly onto the floor. And then at once a servant dragged it off down the stairs, where there was daylight once more. "Now life begins again," thought the tree. It felt the fresh air and the first rays of the sun, and there it was, out in the yard. Everything passed so quickly the tree quite forgot to notice itself. There was so much to look at all around. The yard opened up into a garden full of flowers, and the roses were so fresh and so sweet, hanging over a little trellis. And the lime trees were in blossom, and the swallows flew about. "Now I shall live," thought the tree joyfully, stretching out its branches wide. But alas, they were all withered and yellow, and it found itself lying in a corner among the weeds and nettles. The golden star was still on its highest bough, and it glittered in the bright sunlight. In the yard, some of the merry children were playing who had danced so happily around the tree at Christmas, and one of the little ones ran up and tore off that gold star. "Look what was left on the ugly old fir tree," he cried, and he stamped on the branches so that they cracked under his feet. And the tree looked at all the splendor and all the freshness of the flowers in the garden, and then he looked at himself, and he wished that he had been left lying in the dark corner of the lumber room. It thought of its fresh youth in the wood, and of the merry Christmas Eve, and of the little mice who had listened so happily to the story of Humpty Dumpty. Too late, thought the old tree. If only I had enjoyed myself while I could. Now it is all over and gone. And a servant came, and he cut the tree into small pieces, and there was quite a bundle of them. And they flickered brightly in the great fireplace in the house. And the children who were playing outside ran up, and they sat in front of the fire gazing at it. And the tree was thinking of a summer's day in the wood, or of a winter's night out there when the stars were shining. It thought of Christmas Eve and of Humpty Dumpty, which was the only story it had ever heard or could tell. And then the tree had burnt away. The children played on in the garden, and the youngest had the gold star on his chest, which the tree had worn on the happiest evening of its life. And now that was past, and the tree had passed away, and the story too, all ended and all done with. Do you take time to enjoy everything around you? The tree learned his lesson too late, but you can start right now to enjoy the flowers and the sun and the many things going on around you. Join us next time for another insightful story. I'm Melissa George, and this is The Mindful Heart.